Hello, friends. This is Debojyoti, and today we have a very special guest with us. She's Sarah Schoofs. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I
Close.
hope.
It's Schoofs, but no one ever pronounces it correctly ever. So it's fine. I'm not.
I actually came pretty close.
You were very close. You're actually closer than
Yeah.
most people.
Yeah.
Goofs. Yeah. So it's all fine.
Okay, I did better. So she's, if I had to describe her in one sentence, she's the independent scream queen of American cinema currently. This is the part of Hollywood that we don't talk about very often. So yes, Sarah, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Absolutely, it is my pleasure.
Absolutely. So you have probably watched Sarah in Isla. You have probably watched her in Phobia, Meme, Guard, Theresa and Ellison. You definitely should check out Back Road. It's like a family film. So yeah,
That's yeah. That's a great way to describe background.
yeah, it's a good family film. So yeah, she has done some really good horror in independent, and I think horror. I think Sarah, you will probably agree with me as well. Horror is the genre that thrives most in independent settings, right? Because
Absolutely.
it gets that gritty, that rugged thing. So, and I just want to confirm to my hosts as quote unquote, so this is going to be an NC-17 show, okay? So this is like off topic, everything. Thank you so again, thank you so much, Sarah. This is my first interview. I'm doing someone who's like 100,000 kilometers away from me, so that this is my pleasure. And she's very generous for doing this with me. So Sarah, I looked you up on Google. So you are currently based out in New York, right?
I am. Yes.
But are you from New York or are you from someplace else in the United States?
I'm from a very small town called Ely, Nevada, closer to the West Coast. And it is literally on the loneliest highway. It's called the loneliest highway, Highway 50. There's still a fully functioning red light district there. It's like we used to have like more brothels than stoplights. So, but it's changed now. We
Okay.
have more stoplights. But yeah, it was one of those towns where you can leave at 9 a.m., be hiking in the mountains, running around, and no cell phones or anything. So my parents didn't even know where I was the entire day until I showed back up when the church bells rang at 5 p.m. And that's when I came home for dinner. So,
Was it as exciting as you made it sound? Because I found it very exciting.
I mean, the home
Not the brothel part, obviously. I
it's
want to I
it's
want to confirm
literally every 3 or 4 hours you'll hear this like, and like, you get like it's old school locomotive, like where you can hear it is like, and the entire town can hear this train going through it, and it's in a pocket surrounded by like really picturesque mountains. There's a cave lake. There's all these different places. Like they have ghost towns that you can travel to. Like we used to like kind of four wheel over to the ghost towns and kind of wander through the ruins of these like skeletal remains of what were houses and towns. So yeah, it's a really cool little western town that I appreciate now more that I live in New York City than I did when I was a kid. I'm like, I need to get the hell out of here. So I was like, I'm bored. I need to leave. But now that I'm in New York, I genuinely appreciate like, the quietness, the peace that it is that town. So, and the view, you can see all the stars at night, every single night, which is incredible. So
the blessing in modern world.
absolutely. Yeah. I
Yes. So you are a small town girl.
am. Yes. Very small
Uh,
town.
so I am also from a small town called Barasha. Although we do not have like mountains or ghost towns, it's very crammed and there's a lot of people, and that's like true to India as well. India is very densely populated country. So yeah, I'm also from a small town, and I really like the picture you painted. I could see that you have like a really nostalgic connection. You probably appreciate it more now. So yeah, that was really nice to hear. So, Sarah, are you like, were you interested from acting from from since you're young, or did you had other interest?
I was terrible at everything. I tried out for everything in high school and failed miserably. Fell into acting. My very first role in high school as a freshman was Harriet the Laughing Lady. It was like a 5 minute part, and I still have VHS video of it. It's ridiculous. But from there, it just snowballed. I got the next role and the next role, and then I became the drama club president. I was in the thespian society. I discovered acting, and I never looked back. I didn't want to do anything else but I also was not good at anything else. But yeah,
Someone,
I really enjoy. I enjoy acting. I enjoy the actual process. I enjoy watching other people work in the process that are not part of the acting aspect of it. But I also like being able to see the movies after, which is really fantastic because it's kind of like a reminder that you're living the dream. Just to see yourself professionally edited, and it's just it's beautiful.
so you're just a small town girl living your dream.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
you're from a drama background, and I actually looked up your IMDb profile. You have done quite a few short films,
Yeah.
and I think before Ghat, we were discussing to the recording started. Ghat was her first kind of a big break, and before that, so how did you came from drama? How did you transition into movies, especially horror movies?
I ended up, so I was doing a lot of theater. There's a funny show I could tell you about, like in terms of if you don't want to have the PG.
You can say anything, Sarah.
Like, well, I do have to cover the theater show that I did for 5 years in a row in New York City called Naked Holidays, which is
Okay, that paints a picture.
it
This is like this is Christmas. But
is
yeah.
Christmas. I would have been in rehearsals at this point. So
Yes, we
basically,
will not get gifts from Santa probably because we have been naughty, but yeah. Okay, anyway, we can live with that.
yeah, it was basically like an SNL style holiday themed theater show that had very smart, selective versions of nudity that were always funny, never sexual. And we kind of like, baby stepped it to where it was minimal a little bit more. And then we had this one sketch that we used every single show that we rearranged or rewrote every year to where like we'd have a cast of 30 people just like fully naked doing the dumbest things like naked, like a Rubik's Cube, or I was at one point a limbo stick held up by two dudes with an entire procession of people doing the limbo to Harry Belafonte. So that was my.
Basically, it is R-rated SNL and actually good.
It was, oh yeah, we just kept building venues, building. We started in a tiny little black box theater in New York, and then we ended up our last show before we ended up just not doing it anymore was at the Cutting Room on 32nd Street in New York City. So it was very successful and very smart and funny and very current event driven. So we basically wrote the show from beginning to end, starting in August of that year, and just kind of kept workshopping what was funny, what wasn't, and yeah. We even tested out a potential human centipede sketch, which we ended up
Oh
dropping.
my God.
I told you. It didn't work. It didn't
No,
work. It
the
didn't work.
human centipede is even something that this is like I have my threshold is like a Serbian film and human centipede.
Yeah.
There even I have to say, yeah, this is too much.
No, same Samesies, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because horror sometimes, like, I'm not sure if you're a fan of horror,
Yeah.
sometimes you take it personally.
Yeah.
Horror, you have a tendency, like, I have a tendency to like personalize horror.
For sure. I do. I absolutely do. Like when I watch certain movies, I'm like, I can't. And my husband's like, you do this. You literally die all the time. What is wrong with you? You know it's fake. I was like, can't. Sorry.
We will talk about your dates, on-screen dates, I should say. Absolutely. But I would like to say one thing. Nudity has always been a part of performance art, and a
Yeah,
lot of times there is so the nature of it was experimental, right? We have saw that in Russia, in places like Europe as well. Things that you mentioned, it's fairly mainstream. It's comedy. It's
absolutely.
something that resonates with people. So yeah, it's so fun. So you mentioned that, and you have a knack of comedy as well because you have such a like a vibrant personality. I thought you'd be pretty good in comedy as well. So how do this from this R-rated SNL you
Oh, just
I'll call it that.
so I started with student films in New York City, which I think a lot of very beginning actors do. In
Yeah,
the student films, there's no pay. You're doing it just to purely get the experience. I mean, obviously, the students can't really afford to pay you anyway, but you get experience. You get content for your reel to be able to promote yourself to people who are able to pay you for projects. And I ended up being very lucky. Alex Laura, I ended up doing a student film for him. And he is one of the most incredibly talented directors, writers, everything that I just happened to find as a student. And he made one of the most beautiful short films that I have ever been a part of. And I'm going to blank on the name of it right now because it was like one of the first ones. I can get back to that. But he has since gone
I
on.
can do IMDb, no
Oh
worries.
yeah, if you can figure that out, because and that
Yeah,
wasn't, that was like, it was very successful. It got a lot of awards internationally, and that was when he was just a student. He was just starting out, and he's since gotten multiple films into Sundance. He's insanely successful, and he has one arm. Like, I saw him working the camera, like moving things. I'm just like, dude, like most people can't be successful at anything without, I mean, he's so talented. Like, if you have a chance to watch any of his movies, like, I highly recommend just watching all of them.
absolutely. And I would like to like ask you this as well, and I, from behalf of my audience as well, I'll like we have like the feature length films are fairly available. So, like, what would be the places you to get your short films? Because recently I checked your IMDb page and I googled as well. You did a short film called Cameo a couple of years back that
Yeah.
actually got a lot of award buzz as well. I would like to watch that personally because, as I said, I followed your work. So where should we find it, especially in India, because we have that geofencing and stuff?
I have to reach out to him because I don't know if he's actually made it public, and I don't know why. It could be because it is actually a proof of concept. He does have a feature script in the works. I think he's like 3 or 4 edits in. But with that being said, I'm confident that he would be more than happy to make a public version available for people to watch. He actually just sent me a link, but I could absolutely send you that link, and then I can see if he can find a way to make a public option available as well, for sure. But
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
actually
That would be great.
that's one of the films that I'm very, very, very proud of. I have never, I mean, there's a couple films that have been super excited to see come, like, the final edit, but this movie was, this was a passion project for me. I really loved it. Yeah. And Ryan's amazing too. So
And this is like the beauty of independent cinema as well, right?
yeah.
It's not there is no studio machinery behind it, so it
Yeah.
feels personal more. Yeah, I can totally understand it. So I actually checked your IMDb page, and so the earliest credit that you have, just allow me 1 second, is a short film called Billy and Ren.
That was actually one of the first ones. So I think you're at the bottom. I think, so I don't even know if they've updated the most recent. I don't know if they've actually updated or added it to IMDb, but the most recent, gosh, a couple of them. One has a working title of Ashes, which is a short film, and another one is called Relentless. And that one's going to be a beast of a film. I started out in the bottom, like in this like terrible basement with like standing water, where I had a hazmat suit on but heels, and then I ended up, the second run of the shoot schedule was in a mansion where we all got to sleep in. Like, all the shoots were overnight shoots, so I was sleeping in the day, but I was sleeping in the mansion. The crew was sleeping, everyone was sleeping in the mansion, and it has some pretty phenomenal horror actors in it, and horror effects or FX makeup artists as well. I mean, yeah, it's that film's going to be insane, and the kills in that movie are just nuts. And I apologize if you can hear my dog snoring because he is doing it loudly. So if
So
that's what,
we'll put Sarah's dog on the thumbnail. We have already decided it. This is going to be our clickbait.
oh, he's very cute, but
Okay, yeah.
he's the most,
Okay, that is it. We have our clickbait now.
yeah.
So, Sarah, I looked up here. So, just to confirm, so you did that performance art. After that, transitioned into the student films that obviously snowballed into a short film and into a film career.
Yes.
So, like, this sounds like a really nice journey. And Sarah, I think your first big break in a feature length film was Gut.
Yes. Yeah,
And by the way, you looked, and I don't want to like sound flattering, but you look beautiful on Gut.
thank you. I was super green, so green in that movie. And I remember there was one point where I'm on the phone and I'm stirring a pot and I'm getting exciting news, and I couldn't talk and stir a pot at the same time. And I think it was my first experience of you being the only one responsible for the entire take to be successful, and an entire room is staring at you like, don't fuck this. Am I allowed to curse?
Absolutely. It's an
Okay, okay,
NC-17 show.
okay, because I do
It's
sometimes speak like a sailor. So,
in this movie you ended up literally your guard is out of,
yeah,
so how can you discuss it? This is not a PG show, kids.
okay,
Okay, this is
fantastic.
the thing.
So yeah,
You
I
can
was
swear as much as you want. I
yeah,
can swear in
oh,
just to make you
careful
comfortable
what
as
you
well.
say.
Okay,
Careful.
showtime, motherfuckers.
Amazing. So yeah, I basically I was terrified because it was the first time I'd had an entire room just staring at you, and you just have the floor. You're the only one doing the lines, and I just kept messing it up. And finally, Elias, the director, he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's just like, stop stirring, or when you get excited, stop stirring. Like, don't when you have to talk." Just stop stirring. And that's what ended up getting me through that take. And I think that kind of drove home my work ethic in terms of film, knowing going forward, I'm going to show up with my lines memorized. I'm going to have my choices made. I will adjust as necessary. And that's another thing that is a weird transition from theater into film is that if a director isn't actively talking to you all the time, a theater person or someone with just a theater background might think that they hate them or they don't like what they're doing. But I've learned in film, the less people are redirecting or adjust any sort of adjustments, they like what they see and they're moving on, because moving on is the best phrase you can hear on a film set, moving on. And so yeah, that was rough, but it also kind of drove home how important it was for you to have your stuff already worked out and then just adjust as needed. And I think that's why I continue to work, is because I'm professional and I just get the hell out of the way, because it's actually a giant moving machine, a film set. Like, you actors are very minimal in when it comes to the entire production of a film, versus like when theater, there's a lot going into it at the beginning, but then the actors, it's their baby, their beast. But on film, actors are like this big comparatively speaking, and I don't think that people realize that, because actors are on the forefront of the industry and they get paid the most, and they don't realize that if it weren't for everyone else in the background, they wouldn't look good and they wouldn't get jobs going forward. So I'm always a big proponent of telling people that, because I don't think everybody actually realizes. So
That was really nice of you.
yeah.
That was really nice. Thank you. Giving shout out to the people that really deserve it.
They really and their days are way longer. Their days are so much longer. Everyone's exhausted, and then I just like walk in. They were already
Sarah, I'll tell you a thing that is currently going on in Bengali film industry, and I'll really like to know your insight. But please go ahead.
what's going on?
So there is there is a conflict going on between Directors Guild and the crew. So we have like 14-hour work days for the crew. Okay, and there is a cap to it, and the Directors Guild want to remove that cap, and this is just like
The
that 14-hour cap. And end of the day, I was like watching those interviews. I can send you the link, but they're in Bengali, so you have to
yeah,
check you have to turn on the captions. I mean, it's so tone deaf. They do not understand the fundamental difference between someone who has us and someone who has not. So, this watching this from the privileged lens to
yeah.
the underprivileged, to people who have less than you, it was so big of you to say these things, because I see how Bengali film industry works and how a certain section of people are treated in a certain way. So yeah, that was like
I mean, yeah, no. I mean, it's still 14 hours. That's
it's 14
crazy.
hours. I
That's
work 9 hours and
crazy.
I feel like it should be like a
Well,
couple of hours less.
and I'm actually non-union. I've gotten a lot of these horror movies because I'm non-union, but still working with people who treat me well. But a lot of the crew is union, and like they there's a certain thing to where after a certain number of hours, I don't know the rules because I'm not union, but like after a certain number of hours they're paid double. And then there has to be, like, if they wrap late, there has to be a certain number of hours before they're able to come back to film the next day. There's all these protections in place where it should be, and even then with all of those protections, they're still exhausted. Like, it's a grind
It's a
doing
hard job. It's a
it's a
hard
hard
job.
job. It's hot. They're often dealing with lights. It's very physical. A lot of standing around, which is painful. But when the actors can step off after they do their scene, no one else is taking a break. Like no one else is taking a break, maybe outside of the makeup artists, but even then they're still paying attention the entire time, making sure someone's not shiny. So everyone's working their asses off. I think the actors have the least of the grunt work, if I were to be completely transparent and
Yes, so I see these directors who get paid a good amount, and they are talking about from their privileged lens that there
yeah.
should not be any cap. So there the union is put in a place to make sure that these people, this crew is protected, right, from exploitation. They don't understand this fundamental difference. Why it is in place? This is the
I
thing.
mean, I'm just trying to fully grasp how someone could say out loud, no, we need them
It's such
longer
a
than
stupid thing
14
to
hours
say
a
out
day.
loud. We are not even like saying it, but we feel embarrassed saying it, right? You
Yeah,
know, and they say it, and they're like well-known people in Bengali movie sphere. They have
wow.
like fan following. They have like couple of million followers on Instagram. Yeah, so they say
I
things
mean,
like this.
yeah, that's crazy. Well, I hope
By the
that
way, couple of millions is nothing in India. We are a lot of people.
yeah.
Yes, like 1 million sounds that's like 10 Icelands, but we are like 1.4 billion. Okay, so when I say it's just a couple of million, it's in Indian terms.
That's crazy. I feel like I might be grumpy being surrounded by that many. I bike in New York
Yeah,
just because I can't stand the subway because I don't like being like,
you have seen like the density of people in New York, right? It's like New York entire country. There is no Nevada to it. I'm talking about the density of people. It's like
that's
the entire yes,
insane.
yes,
Wow.
that is
Are
insane.
there any like, I don't know, you guys use
Almost half as big as USA, bigger than like Mexico and
interesting.
places like that. Yeah, so it's big country. Yes, there are outskirts and stuff like that, but yeah, the population. Whenever there is like people, the population centers are extremely populated. You
Wow.
cannot even, as I said, it's like New York everywhere. The population centers are like there is no like if even if we are talking about small town,
Yeah.
it would be not a small town that you described, where there nobody lives.
It
It will
would be
still be
like
like
it wouldn't be my small town. It'd probably still be like Queens, New York, to where there's still a lot of people.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah,
Oof.
so we actually like we went off the topic a bit. So from your transition
Mhm.
from being a on-stage comedian, if I may say that, yeah, I mean this is probably the best way to describe. And say and from that, how the horror came about.
So yeah, I think I auditioned for Get. So this is the funny thing also with my career specifically. So if any other actors are listening to this and they ever get discouraged, I tend to be the second choice for a lot of movies. It ends up working out great for me. So with Gut, I was not the first choice. I believe the first actress that they had in mind had some sort of a visa issue. So it was between me and this girl. They ended up casting her. It didn't work out. Then they brought me in. So I had assumed that I hadn't even gotten the role. But Gut it was like 20 plus international film festivals that it got different awards. I think it was my
Actually created a like a buzz
It
in,
did. Yeah, it was quite successful. I was very busy with the
even
festival.
Theresa and Ellison is well. I think
Yeah.
Theresa and Ellison is probably the most well-known film outside of United States. It's well known in horror communities. People like me, it's well known.
Well, that's good to I didn't actually know that. That's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah, I mean I
lesbian
have seen it, although I
satire.
see
How
everything.
can you
But
go
anyway,
wrong?
yeah,
But yeah, I think that was the clincher that kind of like steamrolled me or snowballed me into every other film I've ever done. And the horror community in New York City specifically is very incestuous. We all know each other. Every single film festival is like a family reunion, a very dysfunctional family reunion. And so but it's also very tight knit, and it's also very supportive. We're very supportive of each other, which is really great. And so if somebody's who like everyone's seeing everyone else's movies, everyone's supporting everyone else's movies. So if they
that's
say, oh,
great.
hey, I saw this actress in this, and then be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I have a horror director, Jeremiah Kipp, who he reaches out to me all the time if he can't fill a role, and I'll just scroll through my list of Facebook friends, which is my
Uh,
kind of
if
networking
you
for
need someone like a chubby Indian guy, You know who to contact, right?
You're the very first person that I will have him call for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, guys, I'll be in some
But
pretty
yeah, I
quickly.
mean, it's no, but it's, I mean, it really is a very supportive community. And I think that when I was doing gut,
I really like the way you describe. I really like the camaraderie between you guys.
it really is because, and I have not found that to be the case at all. If it's the opposite, actually, to where everyone is so supportive, everyone is so sweet, and so wanting to uplift the other person. And so that's kind of how I think it was coupled with me again showing up, being professional, having my lines memorized, getting the fuck out of the way, but also, just landing into a group of very good filmmakers. And then the really good, talented filmmakers attract other really good, talented filmmakers. And then I just fell into all of the right people who made
I think
really great.
there is like a psychological thing, right? That
Yeah,
talented people attract talented people, artists
yeah,
attract artists. So it's like kind of a psychological thing going on as well. So it's great, the way you describe the camaraderie, and especially so the perception we have in Hollywood, as you mentioned, is it's really cutthroat. Everyone is stabbing everyone in the back. So it's like sometimes it's great to be proven wrong because
right.
that's not the picture we get on the media.
That's
It's
absolutely.
quite the opposite.
I'm not terrible. I mean, I can't speak for all of the genres, even within New York City. I think that New York City is a completely different beast than LA. I think LA is 100% cutthroat, 100% about looks and the amount of Instagram followers you have. Like it's different. This is why I've never actually moved to LA, is because like I wouldn't make it. I would not be
Even
cast
in
as
India,
Apple.
is when people get,
Yeah, that's
not joking,
happening.
the amount of followers decide who gets cast in a movie because there is
No,
like certain social media attraction and going on. So yeah,
super
crazy.
gross. Yeah, it's really crazy. It has nothing to do with talent anymore. That's why, like, so one of my guilty pleasures is like the Kardashians, but they're offering Kim Kardashian like roles for her to like shows like a full on show for her to star in, and I'm like, did you see her in American Horror? It was like, and it's just because she has the clout
Kim
and
Kardashian
everyone else.
probably doesn't qualify as an artist.
No,
I don't think a sex tape qualifies as art. I'll probably make even like a case for porn being an art because that's an actual profession. But
right, right,
yeah,
right, right. Yeah, I'm all
yeah.
for
I
sex work.
think who was that rapper? I think it was like something like DJ or something like that.
What
It
was that?
was peak. I think what was the sex tape? I think it was the name
Yeah,
of that rapper.
it was. She kind of like followed suit
For
for.
a time, like it was big on pop culture, even in India as well. I think it was like 2007, and in India, internet was basically on Stone Age. Even we heard that. I was 11 at that time, so you can understand how big of a
Yeah,
supernova blast it was. So
yeah, but I
so
mean,
I don't
it's
like this
kind of,
famous for being famous celebrities, very honestly. And in India, we have that as well.
yeah,
But yeah,
really,
it
yeah.
sex tape doesn't qualify as art.
And I think that that's kind of the difference when, so if someone comes from New York to LA, but they already have they're already accomplished, they already have the clout, then they go to LA, then they'll maybe be seen and respected. But if you just show up and you don't have anything, it's nearly impossible. And plus the competition is quadruple compared to New York, because New York, although it's a lot of entertainers, it's very small comparatively speaking to LA. So but yeah, I would never, you couldn't pay me enough money to live in LA. I love New York too much. It's my jam.
So I have never been to New York, obviously, and my version of New York, when I hear the word New York, the first image that comes to my mind is the Central Park in Friends.
uh
So that is my New York, like
Wait, there's a
from
sense
in my mind. In New York, in Friends, in the sitcom Friends.
of Friends. Oh, okay. I guess, but that's your experience of New York. That's your reference. When I moved to New York, I pretty much had the exact same reference. I had no idea what to expect. I moved here blindly. I hadn't even met the person that I was renting the apartment from. I sent her $1,000 up front. Got totally scammed by a cabbie driving from JFK. He charged me way too much, which I now know. but I didn't even know that the apartment existed. I hoped it was back in 2004, I want to say, and it did exist, and it was right on the Hudson River in the West Village for $333 a month, which is unheard of. But the woman, it turns out, was subletting, which is illegal. And she pocketed the money, didn't pay the landlord, and I was evicted 4 months later. So that's classic New York City in a nutshell.
You got a cultural shock in
It
your
was,
own country.
yeah, for a small town girl, yeah, but
I can relate a bit as well. Because sometimes when I go to like this really big towns of India, I feel a little like overwhelmed, like I need my little corner somewhere, and I just where I can just feel comfortable. So yeah, I can totally get that. What was your edit when you moved to New York?
what was that?
What was your it? What year was it
It
to
was
New York?
2004, I believe. And yeah, 2004. And then after West Village, I landed in Harlem for a bit, which was fun because Harlem was a bit rougher than it is now. It's super gentrified. I guess I was now part of the problem now that I look back. But I'm now in
So it's not
Astoria.
the Harlem that shows that we see in the movies.
I don't know what how Harlem is really represented in the movies, to be completely honest with you, but I do know that when I was first moving there and I knew nothing about New York City, people were trying, like, they were scaring the bejesus out of me, saying like, oh no, Harlem,
Yeah,
that's
good.
yeah. And then I had Vinny, this guy he was a trainer at a gym I was working at, and he just like put his arm over my shoulders, was like, listen, come here. He's like, you ain't gonna get into, and like, nothing's gonna happen to you unless you're into something. You're gonna be fine. And so and that was
That's like
true. Like
pretty
that,
much every place in the world.
right. And actually the community in Harlem was the nicest community. I was opening a gym Monday through Friday, walking out of my apartment at 3 a.m. and never had an issue. Never once had an issue. And I actually found out there was one guy that rode the same train with me. And I talked to him years later. He's like, yeah, we used to always ride the same train. I always was kind of like watching out for you, making sure you were okay. I'm like, and so it was, yeah, they would, but they did have like nicknames for me. They'd be like, hey, Snow, hey, Glow. Because I was like the only white person. I was just like the white small town girl, just like boo boo, walking 5 blocks to my Harlem apartment. They were very nice, though. So.
Yes, that sounded really nice. So Gat was your first feature film, right? Before
Yes.
that, you did short film, and for a first film, it was really bold. It had nudity, it had like a very violent death. Obviously, you're lying on the bed. I remember
Yeah.
I watched Gat a few years back. So how did you approach, especially the nudity and the everything? How was it overwhelming for you?
Yes and no. I was actually, I also worked full time as an art model or a nude model. So for artists throughout New York City. So the nudity wasn't that big of a deal. I do know that the day I filmed when I was laying in a pool of my own blood, I walked off of that set to go do a booking for an art modeling gig, and I was dyed half pink down the entire side of my body from the fake blood. Like
Yeah,
using
with full makeup on.
no, I washed up, but no, I tried to shower and I just like blood. I'm so pale that the fake blood, no matter what I try, it just always stains me all the time. Like I can't. I there's I think we tried shaving cream or one specific soap during the last film I did, Relentless, to actually clean my hands because continuity, we don't film in order. So I ended up having my hands covered in blood and then they were just red. And then we had to, the next day, we're doing one where no blood was happening. And I'm like, you guys, what am I going to do? And they were just like pulling out everything. I was just like trying to, but yeah, so I showed up to the art modeling gig fully like half covered, like from my body down, just pink. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can't, this is what it is. I apologize. But yeah, so the nudity wasn't a big deal. It was, I really learned a lot watching Jason work, who is the lead of Gut. I think that he was a perfect first example in terms of filmmaking, in terms of watching a professional, someone who isn't afraid to go there and, dig deep. He's spectacular. But yeah, the nudity wasn't such a big deal. And it's funny because I find that like there are some actresses which were well within their own right that don't want to do nudity, but I think it's also kind of, it's a part of life. Sometimes it could be sexualized.
We make bigger deal out of nudity than we should. That's how God created us. That's how God probably wants us to be.
I mean, that's just it, right? I think that people are naked a lot more times than they're not. And it's just so strange to me how and nudity is in America specifically, it's so frustrating because they sexualize nudity so much, but it's such a thing.
Exactly.
Everybody wants it, everybody loves it, but then they're like, oh no. But it's because you're sexualizing it. Not all nudity is sexual. Like
Exactly.
nudity,
You're pampering to male gaze. You don't
yeah,
have to do that. You don't have
absolutely.
to do that. Yeah.
And that was kind of like the goofy theater show that I was talking about before. That actually was one of the points of that theater show is that nudity doesn't always have to be sexual. Nudity can sometimes just be nudity. It could be funny. It's not always about sex with a naked body. So
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Personally, I'll watch a movie, a horror movie, especially with nudity and with violence rather than without it. PG.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
mean, it's more
absolutely.
visceral, it's more graphic, it hits hard. So, yeah, absolutely, yes. So, Sarah, I would like to really know how the independent scene works because the independent scene, as we are discussing before the recording started, is independent scene in India is completely different how it works. There is still like a machinery behind it because we do not have like the crowdfunding and the other the ecosystem that we. So, how is the ecosystem of independent cinema work in America?
I mean, I think a lot of them still absolutely have to do a certain level of crowdfunding. However, they do that. Other people, like some people sell things, promote things that they can get from the film set. Other people try to just do all of the initial crowdfunding in the beginning. I've seen a lot of people be really incredibly successful at it. I've seen other people like fail miserably at it. It's a crapshoot. I personally would be terrible at that. But yeah, a lot of people, I mean, it's difficult for a lot of independent filmmakers to actually make money, but it's also about kind of like climbing up a little bit more and more in terms of if this film is good, then you're going to get better funding and you're going to attract better actors. And then the higher level of actors that you have in the film, that gets more attention to your. So there's so many different things that come into play with the movies. And then even with, I think, Phobia, I don't remember her name, but she just did a super tiny cameo. But she was a major horror actress, and that's literally anyone ever talked about in every single review was, oh my god, they
You
had
can
this
take
actress.
names, no worries. You can take names.
Yeah, but I mean that's just it though. Like you just it all is about, a lot of like political choices, but also just making a really good movie. And you're probably most definitely going to be in the hole with the first one, but maybe the next one and the next one, it's a little bit better. You have a little bit more funding and you don't totally go into debt doing it. So, yeah.
So in independent cinema in India, how it works is there is still like a studio machinery behind it. It's not individual driven. Okay, it's very low budget as compared to the movies that I made, but there is still there is still a machinery going on. So it's very different. The independent cinema that like the way you describe in that spirit, it's basically restricted to YouTube. Like
Interesting.
so we have like because of the population that we have, there's like a lot
Yeah.
of views and stuff. So yeah, so what we do is in India as well, and a lot of YouTubers as well. They have made films. I can share you that as well. It's some of them haven't been in English as well. I'm trying to make my own as well. What they do is they film it and they upload it on YouTube because there is no other revenue source. Yes, you have created a thing, say 10 grands. You have created a short film, but there is no way to monetize it. Okay, there is no way, there is no revenue stream. So the only revenue stream becomes social media, primarily YouTube. Yeah, so we do not have like the ecosystem. I think especially Europe does a really good job. They have like theaters and stuff, their theater chains, but there is like a good number of regular viewers to like even not even like independent and underground films.
Yeah.
So especially places like France, they have like a very vibrant underground cinema where there is like a revenue model going on. There is that stream for like make it financially viable. But in India, it's very difficult to make any independent film completely like the way you described. It's impossible.
I wonder if do but you can make money eventually off of YouTube, depending on if you get a certain number of followers. I'm not sure how you,
Yes, that eventually is like
but it would have
very
to
far.
like, yeah, hard
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. So what do you like about working in independent cinema?
The community is so great, and I think that also it's you never know what you're walking into. I think with Relentless, like I didn't know anyone, which was kind of terrifying and refreshing compared to New York City.
Relented is the one, that survival thriller that you described.
Yeah, the Relentless is the movie that we did, the mansion and the basement. But he'd actually seen, and this is funny. He also had another actor that he had cast and it didn't work out. And then he had known some of my movies, so he reached out to me,
Story
and
of your life.
so he was based out of Chicago, and I didn't know anyone. I was just flying completely blind with this one, and I ended up making some really great friends, and I feel like the world, it's such a small world, but it slowly gets bigger. And I think one of the things I used to hate, one of the phrases I used to hate about breaking into the industry is it's all about who you know. But I actually kind of love that phrase now, because with all of this work that I've put in and all of the projects that I have done, I've held on to everyone is talented, brilliant, lovely. And that has, built up my career as well, knowing these people, to where I end up getting new projects, to where it's gotten to the point where I don't audition anymore. Like people are just like, "Hey, Sarah, you want to do this?" I'm like, "Yes, please. Thank you." I haven't auditioned for a movie in a long
So you
time.
get selected for a movie. You get selected for.
Yeah, people just reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, Sarah, I have this role. Can you read the script?" And that's generally how it works out. Auditioning has never been great for me anyway. I don't know why. I think one of the last movies that I auditioned for that I really wanted, that I ended up getting, was Teresa and Allison. And I think I loved the script so much that I walked in like, I'm going to get this role. And he said within 5 minutes of my read, he's like, "Oh, it's hers. It's donezo. We're good with this role." But otherwise, I have never been very successful with auditions. But it is about who I know, based purely on, the grit and the work and getting to know people within the industry. And I've shown up to networking events, and that's worked out for me as well. I ended up just doing a short film with another guy that I met at a networking gig, and he's a great new contact that I have. So, but that's like the indie world in a nutshell. It's just really getting to know the smart, talented people that you want to work with, and avoiding the people that you don't. Because there's a couple of those
That's true
too.
to
Like
any profession, by the way.
yeah.
And Sarah, since you mentioned Teresa and Allison, and I remember one scene. So how difficult is, and I really like to know this, how difficult is the makeup process in horror? And the practical effects. How difficult? Because that looks like a
It
lot of work.
was that, yeah, Teresa and Allison was batty. There's a point at the end of the movie, no spoilers, but there's this point where I grab Teresa's hand and I'm holding onto her, and we're both just like fully covered in blood.
That was the scene I was referring. Yeah.
Yeah, and not a lot of people know that a lot of fake blood is just chocolate or like syrup, and it's very sticky after a certain amount of time. Chocolate, so you can have it in your mouth, but we would I'd grab it and then we'd be like, cut, and then we would have to like take our hands off, and it sounded like Velcro. It was like rip, and I was just like, and it would almost like, it got to the point where it's so sticky, we're like, we're gonna rip the flesh off of our hands. But there was another movie I did, which I don't think it's available anywhere publicly yet, because I don't even have a copy of it, and it's been a couple of years. But
What is the name?
it's called Bishop's Cove. Actually, ironically enough, the same girl that I was hooking up with all the time in Back Road, ironically, we were cast together as girlfriends.
Her name is Emily Hill, right? Her name is Emily Hill.
Her name is that, yes. So she was my
Yes.
girlfriend. She's the main character in it.
You can understand how deep my nerdness goes. This is like a bottomless pit.
I'm sure she'd be open to interviewing too. She's lovely. She's like my girlfriend all the time. We're like, we need to stop meeting.
I actually stopped hooking up because of you guys. Okay, the scene that was in Back Road. Okay, I was terrified. Now I'm afraid of meeting girls.
You should.
Thank you for.
She's a beast. But yeah, in that movie, in terms the FX specifically, there's this one cutaway where it's whether it's a fever dream, whether she's actually experiencing it. I'm supposed to be like her loving girlfriend, and I'm like this. I'm totally mismangled, messed up, and everything. And I had my eyes. God, it's been a while since I was naked, but not really, because like I had effects all over the front of me. I had my eyes completely covered up the entire time. So I did the entire shoot fully blind. Like at Beatrice Sniper, who I recommend fully and with my whole heart as an FX artist, like self-trained. She's fantastic, but she is bonkers with her work. And so like I had to have my eyes fully covered, and I had to do this crazy like zombie dance that was like a fever dream that she was having in the movie. That was the most difficult FX experience I've ever had. And Phobia was really hard because I had
I haven't watched Phobia. So there is like one movie that I have like downloaded of you, from I had to like bypass certain things. You can understand that not
well,
everything is available. Yeah, I have to do
yeah, not
torrents and
all of
stuff.
them are great. Not all of them are gems, and that's okay.
No, there's one movie that actually has buzz. It's called Meme. Yeah, I have it downloaded, but I haven't watched it yet.
That's
I have watched Backroad, obviously.
yeah,
I really liked Ayla, Teresa and Allison,
yeah,
as I said. It was the first movie that I have watched, and I have watched Ghat as well. So yeah, all four I really liked.
yeah.
Especially Backroad was like I was talking to one of my like girlfriends the other day, and she was asking like what are like good feminist takes on horror, and I actually recommended Backroad, and so I'm not sure if it qualifies as
Mhm.
feminist take on horror, but it empowers women in a genre that sometimes has a tendency to make them objectifying, right?
Totally.
Horror has that yeah, so I actually so we had a discussion on that as well. This like 4 or 5 days back I was talking like just watch Backroad, and as a
Yeah.
male it's not that difficult to watch, but as female you probably find it empowering.
Backroad was a beast. That was interesting. It was probably, if I were to
I
give,
really liked especially that scene, that obviously that scene, that ripping off scene.
oh
Um,
yeah, the so
okay,
Tom Smith
I
is the
really
effects artist for that movie, and he's also incredible. I actually did Valentine Bluffs, which is available on YouTube because it was a fan film. He couldn't make money off of it, but it's incredible. I thought he did a great job. But it's Valentine Bluffs is a fan film off of My Bloody Valentine with a minor. But he did the effects makeup slash fake, for it
yeah.
to be ripped off. And he's been a great contact for me. I love working with him. He's just such a
Yes,
gem,
that scene traumatized me. That scene has ruined my dating life.
as, as it should.
So yes, so I really liked like how it subverted the male gaze. And I was just like 3 or 4 days back, I was talking to one of my friends that it's a really good feminist take on horror.
Yeah, that movie actually, the we call it the white trash hot tub scene, which is basically a hot tub in the back of a pickup truck where we get the guy in the chainsaw
Yeah.
and all that. We ended up unintentionally starting a police investigation for an actual murder. He was using actual like
Oh,
hamburger and stuff for the guts and stuff, everything. They had like the torso that they basically, chainsawed through, while me and Emily were just getting splattered with blood. By the way, that's the other thing with FX. They had like, for Backroad specifically, they don't just have like, they're not just splashing you with blood. They have like hoses with pumps to where we were just like drowning in fake blood. As I'm sure you could recognize in the, but we were still
absolutely.
making
Yeah.
out while we were drowning in fake blood. So it's, yeah. And it was very cold too. That's also a thing about movie making. You're always either super hot or very cold at all times.
So, like, I'll definitely watch the Valentine, the film that you mentioned. And so, what you like, independent cinema, you mentioned you really like working. So, have you ever given a thought of like working in the mainstream setup of Hollywood, the Hollywood as we like recognize?
Yes, I've thought about just like reaching out to like Tyler Perry because he has a pretty spectacular horror scene going on right now, and I think
Actually, we are living in a horror film like golden age as well. The post Get Out, especially the
yes,
Blumhouse
yes.
stuff, and
Well, I mean
we are living in, yeah.
we're living in the
I
best times
actually
of the horror genre.
exactly. So I am in India.
Yeah.
Heretic just released. I'll be watching Heretic maybe in a couple of days.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so the interesting thing about my relationship with horror is because that's what's made me successful. Like it's been my bread and butter for years. And I remember having conversations with actresses back in the day where they actually told me, they're like, I would take that off my resume. They're not gonna take you seriously because I had horror films on my resume. And it's so funny because I have this whole thing about like booked it actors and like, oh, they make their entire personality about acting and booking it, and that's the whole thing that I have. But all of these people that never did horror are all of a sudden wanting in into I'm like, what?
I
Like,
think Conjuring was
I
the
wasn't
first
cool
thing
enough
that
to be
kind of
back in.
opened the door.
Yeah,
Like
no,
Conjuring
yeah,
was
they absolutely opened the door. And now it's cool. And I like part of me was kind of like you're just doing it to get into the like we've been doing it and passionate about this for years. And so I was a little bit kind of
now
like,
people recognize it while
now
we
they're
are so
like, oh,
passionate.
now it's cool. I was like, okay, fine. You can
It
come
was always
in.
cool.
You can
It
come. Water is fine.
Actually, I think it's probably the best time that has ever been to be a
Absolutely.
horror fan plus a horror performer as well. Thriving, even in India, as I was telling you. In India, horror film was like unintentional comedy. I'll send you a couple of movies. They are like, if you're drunk or like insane, you will enjoy it. In normal state, you probably
I
won't.
might actually
But
really enjoy it. And I do have one of my friends
you
who
might really enjoy it
that's
if you are drunk.
yeah, not
There is no way you're going to. There are like few films, and I wish I was joking. So there is a movie called Machli Jal Ki Rani Hai, that's in Hindi. It means fish is the queen of water. Okay, this sentence makes no sense, by the way, and it's
I wasn't sure if I was
yeah.
missing out on a reference or
Yes, it sounds like someone has probably said it, like Confucius has probably said it, but it's not. It's nonsense. So I'll share you the link.
I would
Just
love that.
watch the
I
movie.
will I look forward to it actually, for sure. So I
You will look forward to it. Just have a drink, and
will.
it is like it would be bonkers good. There is no horror to it. It's a horror film, but it's like a comedy gem.
That
It's
sounds
like Machli Jal Ki Rani Hai. Fish is the queen of water, which is not a saying. So yeah.
it's not to say. But I mean, I think in terms of like my whole thing with breaking into the main industry, right? I think that there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I find that each movie that is successful that I do gets me a little bit higher up, gets me a little bit higher up, gets me a little bit higher up. And I think just even like Therese and Allison coming out, I'm like, oh God, I'm so excited to see what doors this opens for me. And it did. And then Ayla was very exciting because I worked with D. Wallace.
Didn't Ayla come before Teresa and Ellison?
What was that?
Didn't Ayla came
Ayla was
before Teresa
before,
and Ellison?
yeah, Ayla was
Yeah,
before Jason
yeah.
Nelson. And that had Dee Wallace, who was in Cujo. She was the mom in E.T. Tristan Risk was in American Mary. And so even
I don't
working,
think D Wallace and you had like scenes
no, we didn't
together.
have, we never saw each other
Yeah. Did
once.
you
And
meet her?
I never met her.
Did
I
you?
did hang out with Tristan all the time. She's a gem. She's absolutely lovely. Have you ever seen
She's a
American Mary?
very good actress. I haven't, but I watched her in Island and a couple of other things. She's a great actress,
Oh,
absolutely.
she's fantastic. American Mary is a spectacular movie. Yeah, that's also, if you were
I'll
talking
definitely check
about
it out.
something that is very women getting their power back, that's a good one to watch.
Feminist take on horror, yeah.
Yeah, but that's it. And so like even this movie Relentless that I just did, that I have Paul Pastor. No, that's not the right name. Paul. Shit, I'm forgetting his last name. But he was one of the pinheads in Pinheads. What's the movie? What's the movie?
Sounds like a Adam Sandler comedy.
No.
That
Oh,
sounds like an unfunny Adam
Hellraiser,
Sandler
Hellraiser.
comedy.
And then we had another girl who was in VHS. So they had quite a few names for this movie, which is very exciting. So I think that movie is going to do very well. And it's genuine baby steps. I see people constantly auditioning for like SVU and all of these big shows, and they go to like 10 auditions for the tiniest role only to be cut out last minute. And I'm like, God damn, that seems like a waste of time. So that's really not something I'm actively pursuing. I'm just
Yes,
climbing.
you have established a career in independent cinema.
Yeah.
As you mentioned that, several of your films are well known, at least in horror community. As I said, Teresa and Edison, Backroad, films like these are well known in because I found you, right?
Yeah.
I'm from India. I found you. So your movies have made an impact.
That's
That's why
amazing.
we are here. Right. It's like 100,000 kilometers away from where you live. So yeah, your movies have, at least again in the cinephile community, people who watch horror are like they are familiar with you. It's not like that you haven't. You are something.
Thank you. And I think, yeah, it's just like every single movie, you just kind of are focused on that movie and then it turns into a next one, turns into the next one. And I think having gotten gut years and years ago, I never anticipated that I would be so fortunate to have done like really, to have been able to work with so many talented people across the board. So I'm just very fortunate. And I think gratitude is part of it also. Like the second you think you've made it, no one's going to like you anymore. So
What is your favorite horror movie? Just give me a few names.
I forgot the name of it. I keep forgetting the name of it. I just saw the one with what's the guy that plays all it this isn't the movie I'm talking about because I actually haven't seen this one, but he plays all of the multi personalities.
Split.
Yes, what's that actor's name? Because he was most recently in a movie that was fucking phenomenal. I know his name every other like I just was
He was
talking.
in X-Men. Yeah, he was in X-Men. Just allow me 1 second.
Let me
He
see.
was in X-Men. It's James McAvoy.
Yes. So let me see.
James McAvoy did a horror film. I probably missed out. Is it Speak No Evil?
Yes. That's it was so good.
How did it flew under my radar?
So good. It is so good. I don't want to say anything about it. I want you to just watch it and enjoy it. It's very good.
The movie, the recent movie, apart from the usual suspect like The Shining and The Exorcist and The Rosemary's Baby, the horror movie that hit me the hardest was Hereditary. That
Was which one?
that ticket, Hereditary.
Yes, yeah. I
Hereditary.
mean, that most people, right? I think most.
Yeah, that even Midsommar didn't like fuck me up that much.
Yeah.
Midsommar is like a lot of people describe it's really disturbing or nothing, but yeah, Hereditary like really screwed me up. So
I think
many,
Midsommar, I had to watch a second time to really
yeah, it
try.
was like
Like,
more of a
you have to watch a couple times to really catch everything. And then after I
yes.
watched it the second time, I'm like, oh shit, I love this movie so much. I mean, that's
Midsommar is a good movie. There's no doubt about that, but it doesn't hit you as hard as Hereditary does. There's not that instant gratification for like horror. It would be like you're like
hmm
scared your pants off or something like that. So I really like Station 9 as well. I really like Autopsy of Jane Doe. These are the two movies that I
Oh.
recommend to everyone. Lake Mango from Australia.
You're gonna
You
have to
should
send
watch
me
Lake.
a list of all of these on Instagram and so that I can watch them all.
Absolutely. Lake Mango is a movie that is very doable in an independent setup because it's a found footage film. The
Okay.
entire movie is based on like a video, what I should say, like old keypad phones. It was like a video type. It's a brilliant film, Lake Mango. So yeah, you guys should check it out. And I think it's more than 1 hour, and I'm probably extending it. You'll probably be busy. I'll quickly wrap it up. So I'll just want to ask one thing. So you have quite a eventful life. You have done performance art. You have been in movies. You have been short films. What is the one thing that you think that defines you?
That's a great
That
question.
was a deeply philosophical question.
I like it just in general, not like with just acting
No,
or
even if from art, like from work, something that you're proud of, something that you think that a lot of people should see.
like in terms of like a project or
Yes, maybe a project is something that you hold close to your heart.
I mean, I'm really even though it is just a short film, but I'm proud. I'm very proud of Cameo. I think that's probably
Yeah,
one of
Cameo.
the
I was
best.
telling you before that as well, right?
Yeah.
Cameo is something that like it is making a lot of noise on the award circuit, and I'll be looking forward to that link.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I didn't realize it was very helpful in terms of Ryan, the director. I was unaware that this is a thing that existed beforehand. And I think it's probably one of the films that I kind of.
What is this movie about?
It's about a girl who receives a cameo necklace, and you don't know if she's spiraling or if there's some sort of a deeper, darker something at play that's kind of taking over
So
her life. Right.
psychological horror.
Exactly. It's a very psychological horror. And Ryan, the writer, director, producer, everything, him and Emily are a husband-wife team. They're just such a joy to work with. But he showed me this YouTube clip where someone who had schizophrenia, basically, whether it was them that did it or hired an actor to recreate what it sounds like to actively experience schizophrenia. And it's terrifying. And so,
is it available publicly?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've used it because I used it for this movie, but basically every single time, a lot of times when I'm on set, like when they cut, like I'm just like goofy gabbing with like, PAs and, crew and everything and just shooting the shit. Just like, it doesn't matter how serious the movie is. We could be like screaming, crying, and then I'd be like, I'm kind of like Julianne Moore when it comes to that. I just, I can be like sad then happy, and then turn it on and off. But with this movie specifically, I really just, every time we cut, I would go back into my corner, put my earbuds in, and just listen to this over and over and over again. And it was incredibly helpful. It may have been cheating, but it worked.
This is like method acting. I heard somewhere that Robert De Niro broke bones while shooting Raging
I'm
Bull.
not that method. It was a good way to kind of keep reminding yourself what the character.
The descension to madness. Yeah. Yes, we are back. Yeah. Yes, that was kind of creepy though. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it was a great talking to you, Sarah. And what are the projects we can look forward to as horror fans? And me too, Malika. I'm not even like a horror film. I'm deeply a cinephile. What are the
Um,
projects we can look forward?
well, I think if you get a chance to watch me, I definitely recommend. It's not horror, but it's interesting. It's not conventional in terms of filmmaking, but I really enjoyed it, and I love it. And that also was a passion project of both the director and eventually me. And I ended up only getting that role. He doesn't audition people, he just has conversations with people. And after he brought me to have a conversation with him at a coffee place, what was supposed to be a 30-minute conversation turned into a 3-hour conversation. And he was like, okay, she's it. She's the one that's cast in this role. So that I'm really proud of that movie. I just finished a short film called Ashes that's still in post. Relentless is still in post, but Relentless is something that I'm very excited to see. I
Hopefully
can't.
that opens new doors for you because it's a survival thriller. It's
Yeah.
still it's still out of your comfort zone,
Uh,
from horror. Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. And Sarah, I'll ask one more question, and you can totally skip if you want because in India we have this issue as well. So in film industry, so you guys had a Me Too movement, right?
Sure.
Yes, and in India as well, unfortunately, it's not an easy topic to discuss, but I think it's important to discuss. So
Yeah.
the issue of women's safety in film sets have come to light, and there is like a lot of accused, and I don't want to go into that, but I actually checked your YouTube page. By the way, you guys should check her YouTube page. It's actually really funny. And there was one video, I think it came out in the light of Me Too movement, where you described you had a very unfortunate experience as well, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yes, you can share it. You can totally skip it. We'll end it before it.
You kind of cut out for a second. Was it when the director was trying to get me to rehearse nude?
Yes, I guess.
So, I mean, yeah, I think I've had I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of professional people to where I know how to be respected on a film set. And also having worked in the art community, I know what it's like to be fully nude and have people treat you with respect and dignity and not disrespect you. And I did have an experience where a director and it wasn't even in a proper studio. It was like some little like house in the back of his house. It was weird. And he was like, okay, well, let's rehearse nude now. Like, show me that you can do the scene nude, which it was a nude scene, and I
I'm
understood.
I'm not sure, but is it like even like rehearsing nude a thing?
It's
Means
not a
that
thing.
that
It's
sounds,
not a thing.
yes,
No,
means that sounds a thing to do.
yeah. So no, it's not a thing, and I think that actors need to know that, and that's, I think, why I had that diatribe on my YouTube, is because what set me off with this guy specifically is when I was explaining to him, I was like, listen, I work as a nude model, I've done nudity in film a million times over, I'm good for it, man. You don't need to see if I can deliver the lines nude. Like, I'm good for it, I promise you. And he's like, well, all of the other actresses were fine with it. And that's where something in me, it set me off. And I immediately, when I went home, I messaged every other actress. I told them what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable. Half of them quit, half of them stayed on the project. That's their prerogative. The producer didn't know that this guy was pulling this, so he quit. And so I think I'm just, now that I have experienced good experience, like even Backroad wasn't 100% professional, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but it wasn't. The main actress was so terrified of the lead actor, Brian DeSanto, that I had to stand in as during the rape scene. We just luckily were the same size. I had to stand in as the person who was getting raped because she was so terrified of him because of how unprofessional he was. So that is unfortunately.
This is gross. This is not acceptable at all.
I agree. Yeah. And so I think now that I know what's acceptable, I am 100% the mama bird on every single film set. I'll stand up to people if something's not right. There was one film I was working on, they were using a real knife.
Hello, Sarah.